friends, we are back. We are on chapter 14 of Ghost Academy by E.C. Farrell. Locklear's quiet over the next few days. Fear presses against its spelled walls, causing students to jump at the slightest sound. Though Landon still sits with us at meals, he's even more grumbly than usual, snapping at any attempts at conversation, even from Maya, the only person he typically puts up with. Rafe, however, is back to smiling, and I can feel his intense desire to make things easier on everyone else. Definitely an Enneagram 2, a personality type always ready to serve the people around him. I snorted this thought as I slide into my seat across from him Wednesday morning, Yasmin on the other side. Quinn's already halfway done with his food, dark circles line his eyes. Of course, the poor dude had to see something absolutely traumatizing at his first party. Chances are it'll be a while before we can convince him to let loose again. Rafe's dimples greet me, coaxing out my own smile easily. That boy's a helper if I ever pegged one, and I could definitely get used to having him around. A selfish thought, considering how dangerous it is for all of us to stay on this side of things. After seeing those two students get twisted, passing on fast should be at the forefront of my brain. Any word from your medium man? Rafe asks, digging into his bacon. Not yet. I plan to harass Mr. Q about it today, though. Watching someone burst into flame quite literally lights a fire under your butt. Rafe laughs a little, though it's a bit pinched. Still having nightmares about that. He shivers. Same, and poor Haya. She's hiding it pretty well, but she's a mess. Can't even imagine what it's like to see 3 of your fellow students go out like that. I trace the mouth of my coffee cup with a finger. I wish there was something we could do. Even though he's kind of a jerk, Landon's not wrong about sitting around here waiting to get twisted. Finding our bodies seems to be the best answer to me, Rafe says, though I guess moving them here isn't without its difficulties. Definitely a top priority, Yasmin says with a nod. Don't think I'll sleep well until I make sure mine's okay. My kingdom for a mass spell we could put over everybody's grave to protect them. She thrust her fist in the air. I giggle. Maybe I need to read more so I can finally understand all of her literary references. Quinn snorts. Nice thought. Getting mine was a massive pain. I'm about to ask why when Rafe waves a little as Haya walks up, her tray almost dipping in the middle under the weight of the amount of food she's piled on it. She slides in next to me, not smiling back at Rafe, but returning his wave with her fingers. Her eyes droop at the corners and her mouth is pressed into a thin line. You're right, that would be amazing. Sometimes we just have to rob graves if we can't make contact with family members. They never know, but it's still a calculated risk. Things would be much easier with some kind of protection spell. She shivers as Landon drops his tray onto the table next to Rafe and plops down, that ever-present glower on his face. What about your body, Landon? I ask. It's probably dumb to poke the proverbial bear, but I can't help myself. Buried on school grounds like Haya's, he says, not looking at me. Found it when I went out to take care of my first bit of unfinished business. Interesting. So he's not worried about saving his own neck, unless of course he thinks he might be connected to an object. Have any Xers ever found Locklear? I asked. Once. Haya's hands shake and she sets down her fork. But we should let Kaz tell you about that. It's his story after all. I lift my brows. Y'all said he was an Xer before he died. Do you know why he changed his mind? Landon snorts. If he changed his mind. Landon, Haya snaps, eyes narrow behind her glasses. Stop that. You know good and well he's on our side. If he wasn't, why wouldn't he have just led all the Xers to Locklear, huh? It makes no logical or tactical sense. She taps her temple. Think about it. I hook a thumb in Haya's direction. She's got an excellent point, buddy. Maybe he has different plans, Landon says. Bigger plans than just to eliminate all the ghosts always saying they've dealt with the twisted students, but what does that even mean? The only thing you can do with a twisted ghost is scare them away. So where are they sending them? Yasmin picks at her napkin. That's kind of a scary, yet valid point. I flick the zipper on my jacket, annoyed that Landon is definitely right. It's the same question that's been running through my mind. And if they are sending them away, is it with the hope of one day figuring out how to untwist them? Glancing around, I lean forward and keep my voice low. Maybe we can find out. For the first time since he sat down, Landon looks at me. Granted, he's wearing a bit of a smirk, but eye contact is still progress, so I'll take it. You suggesting we snoop around, Martin? I grin, tilting my head a little. Maybe. Just some harmless poking to see if we can figure out where all the twisted students are disappearing to. Y'all interested? Aya winces. I don't know. What if? She ducks her head, then looks back up. Jaws said, you know what? Upon further analysis, I'm in. I looked to Rafe. What about it, Warren? You still on board with, what do you call it before? Team twist something? Untwist the mystery, Rafe says with a laugh. And sure, why not? Consider me your rogue. He reaches into his pocket to pull out a leather bag. Untying the straps around it, he lets it roll out to reveal a bunch of shiny tools. For any doors locked and lined with iron. Nice, I clap. Yasmin, Quinn, what about you two? They both exchange a glance, then nod almost in perfect unison. You have my sword, Yasmin says with another mini fist bump. Better to rage than go quietly anyway. I grin. Okay then, let's start by putting together a list of the students who've gotten twisted, and go from there. We can totally figure this out if we work together. That afternoon, already armed with a slightly terrifying list of students who've gotten twisted, Rafe and I head for Mr. Q's office. Though I already planned on going to see him, he'd sent both of us a note while we were in the rec center that he wanted to see us together. My insides tumble a little with nerves. Had Mr. Q somehow overheard our conversation about snooping around? Did we suck that much at keeping a secret? If he did, Operation Untwist the mystery might be dead before it even started. Or maybe Mr. Q will answer our questions and we won't have to dig too deep after all. Before we knock on his door, Rafe squeezes my hand. You ready? For a consultation with our headmaster. I think I can handle it. I grin. Unless you've already broken into something and have somehow incurred his wrath. Rafe laughs. We're safe on that front. Then I'm ready. Still maintaining eye contact, I knock on the door. Come in. By unspoken mutual agreement, Rafe and I let go of each other's hands and walk inside. Mr. Q looks up with a smile. His wrinkled brow sort of ruins the sentiment, though, so I'm not totally sure how I should feel. I watch him with a little shake of nervousness as I sink into one of the chairs alongside Rafe. Thank you both for coming to see me, Mr. Q says, stapling his fingers. I know it might seem strange, but I always call both students in when I'm about to send them off to attempt their first unfinished business mission together. Rafe and I exchange a glance. Excitement swoops in my gut. That's right, Mr. Q continues. Your teachers have observed the two of you and believe you will be good partners. He sits up a little higher in his chair. How does that sound? I blink a few times, trying to get my brain to catch up. This is definitely not what I expected. Sure. I guess you mean Rafe's unfinished business since we still don't know anything about mine. Unless Theo's checked in. Hope lifts in my chest but takes a dive when Mr. Q frowns. I'm sorry, Billy. That's actually the other reason I called you in. For some reason, Theodore's gone completely dark. We haven't been able to make contact in a few days via any of the normal lines of communication. My mouth goes dry and I comb the hair out of my face with my fingers. Dark, Rafe asks. What does that mean? It could be a number of things, Mr. Q says with a sigh. The most likely reason is that he's trying to avoid a run-in with the Xers. They tend to be very well connected. Most have convinced the politicians in Washington that they're the ones stopping hauntings is right, Mr. Q says. The moment this happened, they all escaped from prison, escalating tensions between humans and soups. Some politicians called for martial law, internment camps, things of that nature. The country was headed for an all-out war until the students of Blakemore took care of things. I swallow, having a bit of a hard time breathing. Yikes. Images from the news a few weeks ago swirl back into my head. Blakemore half destroyed because of that Keeler kid and his extremist buddies. I guess they're a bit like the Xers, prejudice against things they don't fully understand. Yeah, it wasn't good. Rafe's voice is rough. And when I try to catch his eye, he refuses to look anywhere other than the edge of Mr. Q's desk. Though the main threat has been taken care of, our nation's leaders still have much to deal with. Letting out a breath, I nod. Well, okay, then I guess for now we'll deal with Rafe's unfinished business. I squeeze his arm. Though he still won't look at me, he covers my hand with his own. Excellent, Mr. Q says. Then it's off to Blacksburg. Rafe finally looks up, the color in his skin fading. I haven't felt drawn there. Did someone find something out about? He swallows. Did someone find something out? Last I heard from the enforcers was that the trail had gone cold. Mr. Q shakes his head. This is something we often do when a student's unfinished business is difficult to divine. Because Blacksburg was where the end of your life began in a sense. We feel it's the best place to start. It'll also be a good place to seek out information about where you've been buried. Rafe flinches. But what if? He chews his lower lip, then lets out an impossibly heavy sigh. Mr. Q leans forward, his smile still a little droopy. It's never easy confronting our families, even if we ended our time with them on good terms. I know this is difficult, but you won't be alone. I tighten my grip on Rafe's arm, wanting so badly for him to know deep down that I'll be there for him every step of the way, wanting to chase away whatever demons from his past still haunt him. Kazuha can explain more in the morning, Mr. Q continues. He has techniques that can help you when you get there. Best of luck, and keep an eye out for Xers. The second we step out of Mr. Q's office, Rafe kind of falls apart. He slumps against the wall and covers his face with a shaking hand. Unsure of what he needs, I slide an arm around his shoulders. They're tight with nervous tension. Though he doesn't pull away, he doesn't look up at me either. I'm itching to say something that'll fix it, but I chew the inside corner of my lower lip to resist the urge. The last thing I need to do is to push him too hard. If we're going to try and sew something up tomorrow, we've got to be on the same page, and I'll just have to be patient. Wait for him to tell me what he needs, no matter how much I'm itching to rush him. Rafe takes a few slow breaths before he finally looks up at me, not freaking out. This is how I look when I'm totally stable and ready to face hard stuff, I swear. His grin is an epic fail. Fur springs up along his arms, then he shifts, shrinking down into fox form. Rafe lets out that little chirp of a bark, and I put both fists on my hips. He whimpers and rolls onto his back, as if he thinks his cuteness will distract me. I squat and rest my elbows on my knees. Hey, don't do that. Stick with me and we'll talk about it, huh? Hiding from the truth doesn't help anything. Rafe whimpers again and lets his tongue loll out. I lift a brow. Nope, that's not going to work on me, buddy. Especially not if we're going to be going on this mission tomorrow. We need to talk. With a funny little huff, Rafe flips back onto his feet, then shifts back into human form. His cheeks are always a little rosy, but now they're bright red as he shuffles his feet. Sorry. Rubbing his arm, I grin. Hey, it's okay to freak out, or to freak now. Better here than out there, right? Tilting my head to the side, I grab his hand and pull him down the hall. Come on, we're gonna go get all the nerves out today so in the morning we can take care of business. I drag him out the back door towards the dorms. At this time of day, it's doubtful Haya will be in the room, so we shouldn't get interrupted. Other students dart past us at top speed. Yasmin waves from across one of the fields as she coasts into the rec center. Rafe and I float through the door to my dorm room, and I tug him onto the couch it sucks, but it's better to get it out. Emotionally vomit all over me, and let the healing begin. Huffing a half-laugh, Rafe tugs the collar of his t-shirt away from his throat like it's choking him. He keeps his gaze on the ground as he says, "My sister Paige was kidnapped." His words sock me right in the solar plexus. No. Rafe nods, picking at a piece of fuzz on the blanket. A pack of wolf shifters took us both and told me they'd kill her if I didn't help them with Cade Blakemore. He threads his fingers through his hair. I didn't want to help them, but I couldn't let them hurt Paige. Of course not. I can't imagine what I'd do if someone threatened my little brother. Something tingles in my memory. As tears sting my eyes, I try to grab at it, but it slips away. So I pretended to lose my powers and went to the school. Over the next few weeks, I got to know Cade, and his nostrils flare. "You couldn't do it." Shutting his eyes, he shakes his head. "We were down in the basement at Blakemore looking for what we thought was a weapon of some kind when we came across this magic." Rafe drags his lower lip across his teeth. "I thought it was the wolf shifters coming for Cade, or someone working with them, and I wanted to stop them. I was going to lead them away, and then I don't really know what happened. There were all these voices, these weird blue lights. Then this insanely strong magic hit me, tearing me apart." He swallows, his Adam's apple popping. I squeeze his hand, then reach up to trace the red lines around his eyes with a thumb. "Is that how you got these?" Rafe nods. "We found out later that the magic belonged to a soup who gave up her power, and the power of others, a long, long time ago. Cade went down there and claimed it eventually, but it could have killed her too. When I came to as a ghost, I tried to leave, to find Paige, but Cade was the priority, so I couldn't leave Blakemore." I chew my lip and attempt to shove down the unreasonable jealousy stirring in my chest. Obviously, Cade would take priority if he'd put her in danger. This rationality doesn't help me as much as I'd like it to, though, especially not after the look I'd seen on Rafe's face when we both saw that news report about her wedding in the common room. It hits me hard. He loved her. I wrap my arms around my waist and force my attention away from the stupid jealousy. This is life and death, so much more important than any piddling teen drama. I refuse to let whatever I'm feeling screw up Rafe's opportunity to find eternal rest. Rafe runs a hand over his face. Once Cass showed up, I thought that force, whatever it is, would guide me to Paige, but it didn't. Even the enforcers couldn't find her. That explains the guilt and pain radiating off of it. What kind of horrible decision to be faced with? Protect a sibling or kidnap a fellow soup? I clench my teeth. Anger lights up in my insides. If I ever find these wolves, they'll wish they'd never touched Rafe and his sister. But they're right, Rafe says. I need to start in Blacksburg, where she was taken in the first place. See if I can trace her from there. You don't.